Welcome to Psychovisual Learning. This is a special audio-visual process which presents specific encoded information directly to the subconscious mind. It is an advanced learning method which will make it easier for you to absorb and understand the information you are being given. We'll go into that in more detail shortly, but for now, just make sure you are relaxed and comfortable. Loosen any restrictive clothing like belts or ties. Allow your arms to lie limp by your sides or loosely on your lap. Your legs and feet should be uncrossed. Just relax and watch the television screen. Don't be at all concerned about whether or not you are consciously understanding everything in this program. At this stage, it isn't necessary to follow in detail everything that's being said. There may be several terms you won't be familiar with yet, and some of the concepts expressed will become more clear towards the end of the program. And remember that for really deep understanding, this program needs to be watched repeatedly. Multiple viewing will help to ensure an even greater rapport with your therapist. Simply allow your eyes to wander over the screen and settle on any part of the dynamic patterns you see before you which happens to take your fancy. Allow the words being spoken to just wash over you as you concentrate on the creative light sculptures before you. This program will tell you about the basic workings of the mind and show you how they apply to hypnosis. And in case you are wondering, the state of hypnosis doesn't depend on whether or not you believe in it. You'll be able to enjoy the benefits of hypnosis regardless of your belief system. The very word hypnosis has a profound effect on many people. For some, it represents a fearsome form of mind control, where their freedom of choice is taken away from them, and they are made to say things or perform actions which they would normally find abhorrent. To others, hypnosis is merely a form of counseling whereby the client is tricked into thinking they're cured. Today we're going to show you what hypnosis is, how and why it works, and how it can be used by you to improve your life. And then we're going to go a bit further and show you the part hypnosis plays in hypnotherapy. Hypnosis is actually something we do much of the time without realizing it. In therapy, it is used in a controlled way. To understand the process of hypnosis properly, we need to have a basic understanding of how the mind works. The mind, as it is referred to here, means that part of us that consists of our memories, our methods for recording and recalling memories, and also the way we see or perceive the world and ourselves. All that you are right now, in the sense of being an individual being, unique in yourself and not quite the same as anyone else in the world, is due to your past experience. Your character, the you we are referring to, is never exactly the same at any given moment, but it is always the sum total of everything you have ever experienced. Now, all that you've experienced doesn't just mean all of the physical events that have occurred to you. It also encompasses all of the thoughts and feelings you've ever had about those experiences. So we don't just have memories of events stored in neat pigeonholes in our heads somewhere. We also have memories based upon all the thinking we've ever done about those events. And this is a very complex lot of memories indeed, which are all kind of mixed together to create that feeling of selfness we have. At the moment of your birth, you came into the world with slight biases or tendencies within your nature. These inner or intrinsic tendencies are attributed to various causes by different people, including genetic heredity, acquired characteristics, and philosophical or religious reasons. It isn't our purpose here to go into the whys of our inner nature, but simply to understand that we are all born with slightly different mental tuning. At birth, the child is as close to being totally innocent as it can ever be. Its mind is almost a blank slate, waiting to be filled with its experiences of the world. That child has no conceptions of right and wrong, good or bad. The only things it's aware of is what feels good or what feels unpleasant. The child in this state is not equipped to make conscious choices or decisions about its future, since these would have to depend on the child's knowledge of the possibilities available to it. And of course, the child is ignorant of these possibilities, since it has had zero experience of life. The very first things that happen to the child in its life are profoundly important to it. Its first few experiences will be etched into its memory with hardly any distortion at all, being modified only slightly by the degree of tuning of the child's mind at birth. Subsequent events, however, will be recorded into the memory in a way dependent on what the child already knows. For instance, if the child is picked up by its father who has extremely cold hands, then it will expect that unpleasant feeling whenever Dad goes to handle it. If that first time were the only time the father had cold hands, then the new experiences would gradually overcome the first, and the child would grow accustomed to being picked up by a father with warm hands. However, that initial memory is still down there in the memory store, which is simply another name for the subconscious mind. And although ignored and forgotten, its importance is never lost. The mind, or human mental system, is the result of several subsystems in the human being, all working together in their own particular way. The outputs from these systems all contribute towards our feeling of being here and existing within the world. These subsystems include the senses, the brain and nervous systems, the organs of the body, and our memory stores. All the various subsystems attempt to work in harmony together to create a single integrated being, you. However, there are certain priorities which will sometimes have the effect of separating these systems. Deep down in the mind is a part we shall call the animal mind. The important thing to remember here is that it is totally honest. It is interested in two main things. The first is survival. By that is meant keeping everything it already has right now and avoiding suffering. This primitive or simple mind has a very efficient system by which it works. It's called risk or reward. Since its primary motivation is not to lose anything it already has, it's prepared to make us either fight or run away from any possible threat, whichever action is most likely to ensure its continued survival. Once its survival is secured, its next primary goal is growth, getting bigger in whatever ways it can. The animal mind is a feeling mind, and because we don't generally look too hard to see where our feelings are coming from, in other words, to trace their source, then they remain largely unconscious, and we go through life doing things without being fully aware of exactly why. Where growth is concerned, this manifests in different people in many different ways. Some people unconsciously seek to be bigger through acquiring vast sums of wealth, so that they become bigger by estate. Others seek a position of authority, and so they become bigger by power. Others wish to own collections of things. Some seek to learn or experience more, so that they become bigger in knowledge. And others seek to become bigger through relationship, so that they become the new unit and in effect double their size. Others, either consciously or unconsciously, seek to acquire large physiques by muscle or just sheer fatty bulk. Some folk, you may have noticed, have a tendency to put others down, so that by comparison they themselves feel bigger. All of these are attempts to fulfill one of our primary motivations after survival, that of growth. There is another source from which our feelings occur as well, and that is our memory store. Since our memory store contains so much data, not just all of our experiences and thoughts, but all of our hopes, dreams, beliefs and fears as well, it isn't possible for all of it to be clearly conscious at the same time. So the entire lot, all mixed together, manifests as a general feeling just beneath the surface of consciousness. And this is what we call the subconscious. This feeling is not just how we are, but what we are. It represents everything that's gone before, all the things that have contributed towards making the I we are today. Part of our brain is actually two brains. the left and right cerebral hemispheres. These brains offer us the possibility of expanded consciousness in the sense that with these brains we can now become more aware of our primary motivations and feelings. The hemispheres, in a sense, are our seeing minds as opposed to our feeling mind. They offer us the possibility of an objective viewpoint. They offer us the faculties of reason and imagination. These ways of thinking will give us a broader perspective on life than living it simply through the animal mind, or doing things in certain ways just because that's how we've done them before. With the proper use of these faculties, it means that we need no longer be a slave to our feelings, our emotions. We now have the ability to look at them dispassionately. This overview gives us the opportunity of greater choice and wider possibilities. But, and this is a very big but and is the reason not just for many of the world's problems but may also be the very reason you're watching this program, most people are still slaves to their animal minds and their memory stores. Not because something went horribly wrong with evolution's functioning, but because most people don't fully understand how their mind works, how incredibly powerful it can be for both better and worse, and how simple it is to understand it and use it in a powerfully efficient way for the betterment of their lives. Let's look at a simple conceptual model of the human mind and see if we can come across a way of making it work better for us. Here we have to introduce a word you may not be familiar with: paradigm. A paradigm is simply a model, picture or image of something. The personal paradigm is the general idea of ourselves which we carry around with us in our minds, our self-idea. Now we need to look really closely to see out of what material this self-idea is made. The things that define our personalities, as opposed to our physical bodies, are all the things we care about, the things that matter to us. There are certain things we like, dislike, fear, love, hate, believe, disbelieve, and so on. The sum total of all these things is us, the individual character. In fact, if we imagine that all of the things we care about create a huge ring around us, then the hole in the middle is us, the self or ego. If we had no personal preferences whatsoever, then that ring would cease to exist, we would have no ego at all, and whatever happened to us would be just fine as far as we were concerned. Well, no one's suggesting we annihilate the ego. It's what makes us individuals and offers us the joy of being unique. Sometimes, though, that ego, if we aren't aware of its nature and its method of operation, will cause us suffering. And it is this issue which needs to be addressed right now. The personal paradigm lives in the subconscious mind, and only certain parts of it are conscious at any time. One of its jobs is to hold large blocks of information about how we've done things before, and to offer this up to our conscious attention whenever that information seems to be required. This is so that we don't have to constantly use our entire conscious attention every time we do something fairly mundane, such as drive a car or make a cup of tea. Since we've already learned how to do those things, we can leave them to our subconscious mind to do automatically.